following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Bronx Roots in the Zone. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and the two Bronxites are here. Well, there's three of us. I'm a half Bronxite. But David Hubler, how are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm fine. Everything is good.
And good. Michael Preminger, we missed you last show, but you're back.
I'm back. I was on a boat in the Amazon, and I got a sniffle. I got a cold, and there were no tissues around. So I said, "That's it. I'm going back."
Oh, good.
All
I'm
right.
glad you did.
Yeah.
Delighted you did, because the Amazon is no place for a Jew boy from the Bronx on Christmas.
No, I found that out. People, some people were nice. They threw kreplach at me and stuff. So it was. You never know where you can find some Jewish people.
That's true.
Others throw hard bagels. Even the Jews aren't always
hard
nice.
bagels. But it was a real treat to find, and a couple of people from the Bronx were on right along the shore of the water.
I know you guys have plenty to talk about. I just want to touch on one thing that may be of interest to everyone out there. How do, and I'm among you guys, three New Yorkers living in out of New York and celebrating the holiday season. So I'm going to ask you first, Michael, how is the holiday season different? You're in Los Angeles, but Christmas, Hanukkah, how does the tradition differ from when you grew up? And I'll ask the same question to David later on.
Well, when I was a kid, the main memory that I have is going out to my uncle's new house. Didn't stay new every year, but my uncle's house, Valley Stream, Long Island. And we had a lot of my mother's had. Was she there? She had four brothers, so one of them had this house out there. So there was brothers and uncles and aunts and cousins. And here, there hasn't been that much difference. The biggest difference to me was when I was married, and my ex-wife's mother, who was now on her third marriage, invited us for Christmas, and there was ham, a big ham, and right next to it was a big plate of lox and bagels. And I thought, with the ham, I swear. I said, this is wrong. This is wrong, and this I'm not making up. I never felt. It's not that I never felt comfortable. I just felt goofy, and
yeah, I can see that.
But tradition-wise, we never celebrated Christmas. We did celebrate Hanukkah. I don't remember getting a lot of presents, but we lit the candles, and we didn't make a big deal out of it, actually. I'm sorry, I don't have a better story or any story to tell you.
Hey, the ham story with the bagels and lox is priceless.
It really is, Ralph. I'm telling you, it was so goofy, and she did it every time. And I liked ham, but very thinly sliced, like you would get in a mom and pop grocery store for a sandwich. I don't like big pieces of ham. Never did. So I ate the bagels and the cream cheese and lox.
Beautiful. That's festive as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And
David.
yes.
Oh, sorry.
Go.
I was going. No. I interrupted you. Complete your thought.
No. Well, this year I might be going with my daughter and her husband and kids to a woman's house whose son plays ball with my son. They've become close friends, and they have I think it's a Christmas Eve party. Yeah. Or Christmas Day, I don't remember. But they serve chili. Do you guys, David, Ralph, did you guys eat chili when you were kids?
Never. No. Never heard of it.
Me either.
No.
Me either.
Chili and guacamole were not on our menus ever.
Thank you, David Hubler. Thank you. Because when I got out here,
heard of Mexican food before I came to California.
Exactly. I'm so glad to hear that. I thought I was the only one.
People were Puerto Ricans in New York, and all I remember is that they were happy and festive and filled up the Polo Grounds when the Mets got there. The Mets had a lot of Puerto Rican contingency.
Because to this day, somebody puts down a bowl of guacamole. I go, excuse me, I hear my car running. It's like, I'm out of here, man. But my kids love it, or my grandkids. So, but chili, I think I've had it now once, so I'm going to try it again. Because I always thought it was just beans. But
it's meat.
No, and as a matter of fact, there are contests and what have you.
Oh yeah, huge.
Well, I tell you, I was at one of them one time. I was on a press trip to Memphis, Tennessee, and it happened to be the weekend that they were holding their great chili contest along the banks of the, I guess, Mississippi River. Or
the Amazon. Yeah.
Or the Amazon, whichever was flowing that day. You never know. And they were giving away samples to everybody. I have to admit, some of them were really good. I've always thought of chili as being very, very hot. I can't eat hot foods, but these guys were cooking up a storm up there. They weren't even in booth. They were just out there with their chili pots and the oven or whatever, the stove. And boy, I mean, they were really intent on this contest.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was a big deal. So
what is it? It's just meat or something else?
Meat and beans and chili pepper. Chili pepper is what makes it chili.
And then what makes it hot?
Yeah. So, but you can get chili pepper, in different degrees of hot. So you don't have to make it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you can buy it in a can. I mean, they sell, I forget the brand names, but they sell it almost like Campbell's soup in a can, and you just pour it in a pot and heat it up. And you also, lots of times people eat it with, what do you call those? Like Cheetos, the little Tostitos and those little nacho things. Yeah.
Jack, please.
Yeah. So.
Hey, we explained chili, but we didn't explain bagels is obvious to folks. I think it is. But what is lox? I know what it is. But how would you explain lox to someone who's never had lox, David?
Well, I tell them, first of all, it's not the thing that's on your front door.
That's a latch.
Only in Britain is it a latch. Here it's a lox. Anyway,
Oh.
it's again, it's in degrees, and it's smoked salmon and sliced, and depending on the quality of the salmon, is the taste. I happen to love smoked salmon, and I can eat it all the time. And you can get it now in some. We have a couple of bagel places here in Northern Virginia that are pretty good. I mean, you just don't get the real New York bagel. When we would drive up to the city for some occasion and maybe stay with my brother-in-law out on the island, we would come home with a couple of dozen bagels, and they give you these plastic bags, freezer bags. So we'd have bagels, and we bring them home.
Right.
You can't get a good one in a supermarket. Even if it's a supermarket that's owned by a Jewish company, the bagels are terrible.
Absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Well, I equate it with New York pizza, New York bagels. They say it's the water.
Yeah, it is. They're baked. They're boiled in water, and then they're cooked in the oven. So that's what gives it that hard crust, that's so good on the bagel, and the softness on the inside. That's the difference between a real bagel and some of these things that are just soft.
Exactly.
Right.
The soft ones, people don't think that's a bagel. It's not.
I had a guy here who I worked with for a while. He wasn't in my company, but he was a PR guy, and he too was from New York. And he said he came back one weekend, and he told me, he says, "Listen, I was online to get a bagel, and I was standing in front of this. Obviously, this family from out of town from somewhere, and he said the kid said, 'Why are the New York bagels so awful?' And he said, I wanted to strangle the kid."
Yeah, right.
No taste.
Right online.
Yeah. I mean, the kind that come in a package, 6 in a package, they're no good.
They're terrible.
Yeah, we have one. We used to have a couple of good ones around here that actually did. It's interesting. There were two. One right near the metro station that I used to get off sometimes, and that was taken over by these Koreans who were making bagels every day. And it was a pretty good bagel because they used the recipe of the original owners. But then they were forced out of the store because they were building more stuff there, and I lost that one. And then there's another one that's also now run by Koreans. That's sort of hard to get to because it's on a strange corner. But anyway, you got to look pretty far and wide here in Northern Virginia to get a hold of a really good bagel. But you can get good cream cheese and lox, and that helps make up for some of the bagels that aren't all that, aren't up to New York quality. But I wanted to tell
Virginia.
Yeah.
LA,
Washington. Yeah. Good. LA what?
I was going to ask Michael if he has the same trouble getting good bagels. I remember Nate and Al's deli when I was visiting LA, and they put out a good bagel. I don't know if you have trouble getting a New York bagel.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as far as what David was saying with the crust on the outside, the hard crust, so that when you bite into it, you're biting into something, not just soft mush.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Somebody just told me that Nate and Al sold, there's somebody just the other day, but I think it's also for the land, also $20 million. That sounds crazy to me.
It's like buying a sports franchise in the old days.
Yeah. What was that restaurant?
Yeah, exactly.
What
David,
was the
you were about to talk about Hanukkah or Christmas.
Oh, yeah. My sister and I were the only two kids in the neighborhood that sort of celebrated Christmas. My mother had a theory that we shouldn't be deprived of gifts on Christmas. If you remember, my mother was not not religious at all, and she's the one who kept lighting the candle on the menorah, thinking it was going to last for 8 days. You remember that story I told? And she that's why she thought they gave you 44 in a box, because you had some spares. 8 candles. Anyway, so when it came to Christmas, our family was strategically placed within the neighborhood. My grandmother was just across Jerome Avenue in the first block, and my aunts, whom we called the Generals, that was 2 sisters and a third a woman who shared their apartment with her. She was great because she worked for Lionel Trains, and I used to get some stuff every year from Lionel.
Hey.
Oh, I love Lionel Trains.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I was in high...
Incredibly...
What do they... What? Oh, yeah, they're wonderful.
I was just going to say, incredibly realistic, those trains.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And they had a big display every Christmas down at the headquarters. I forget where the headquarters were, but what I've never forgotten is when you went up to the floor, it was in an office building, you went up to the floor, and the door to go in was the front of a locomotive. Just the front, like as if somebody sliced the front off a real locomotive, and that it wasn't the door; it was on the door, and it was 3D. It wasn't just like a photo. And then you went inside, and they had these incredible train layouts of Lionel Trains, and every conceivable option that you could buy, and all of the, remember the yellow orange and blue boxes that all the Lionel Trains came in? There were hundreds of these boxes.
No,
you don't remember that? Oh, that was.
I don't remember the boxes.
Oh, okay.
What I remember is not just the train, the setting they'd have it in with tunnels and paper mache stuff. That, you think you're in a train yard, and you think that there are cows, and
they had cattle cars too,
crossings,
right? Yep.
Cattle cars, little plastic things where you actually put the cows in the train, if I remember.
Yeah. And then they had a crossing. As the train went over the crossing, the lights would flash red, and this little guy would come out of the house and wave his lantern.
Yes. And out of the back, out of the caboose, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it was in the house next to the gate.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right.
And as the train went over the whatever that thing that you put under the track to force the door open, and the little guy would come out and wave his lantern and then go back inside, and the train would go on. But the real what I remember, the great collections of trains that they had at the Lionel Company. But when we lived in Panama, there was a guy. He was a Canal Zone pilot. These are the guys that actually steer the ships through the canal. They do not allow the captain of the ship to steer the ships, which irks a lot of sea captains. They do not like to give up command of their ship. But that's the only way they're going to get across the canal. Anyway, this one guy was a pilot, and he invited us over to his house. Now, the houses there were up on like stilts because of the potential for flooding and stuff. And so he had turned his base, what would have been a basement, into the largest collection, even bigger than what I saw at the Lionel Company. This guy had all the boxes, all the original boxes, and I mean this covered the entire basement, which was the footprint of the house. So he had erected shelves like between the posts that held the house up, and every wall was like a library. Instead of books, there were trains. And
Wow.
it was incredible what he had, and of course he saved all the boxes too. So there was an area there with just these orange and blue boxes all over the place. It was quite a sight to see. And he said, well, you want to see this one? And he'd take it off the shelf, a whole train, and he'd put it on the tracks, and off it would go. And it was remarkable to see. So we had trains, and the trains were always set up at Christmas time in the living room, and there were no trees. We didn't have any trees. But what we did do, because I told you my mother thought we should enjoy Christmas, my aunts across the street, and my grandmother across Jerome Avenue, they would all have gifts for us. So my sister and I and my mother and father, at an appropriate time on Christmas morning, we'd go over to my aunts, and then they would give us gifts. And they were usually good toys. And then we'd go to my grandmother's house and get some more toys. My uncle and aunt who lived down here, over there in Lanham, Maryland, near the university, they always sent a present or two, and so that was for Christmas. And then we ended the afternoon at my father's brother's house, also in the Bronx, and his wife, my aunt, was not Jewish, but she was not religious at all either, but she made the greatest Christmas cookies I ever tasted. So we spent the rest of the afternoon over there getting some more presents, and then playing my cousin Jack, who now lives in Texas, one of the 6 Jews in Texas, and Democrat too. He had this great collection of not wooden soldiers, the old soldiers that you would call them tin soldiers, but they were made out of a metal like pewter or something. Anyway, so that's how we spent our Christmas Day. Now we just go to the
Did one
movies.
of the soldiers in that display have one leg?
No, that's the story.
Soldier?
Yeah, that's the Hans Christian Andersen story, right?
Ah, that's where I'm getting that.
Yeah. So
What's
they did.
that story?
I don't remember which one it is, but it's called this. Oh yes, I do know. The title is The Steadfast Tin Soldier, and he was. I think they actually threw him into the fire and he melted in the end. It wasn't a happy story for kids, but that's the story. The Steadfast Tin Soldier. And you can look it up on Google and read it. And he had one leg. So
he did have one leg. Boy,
yes.
Now I know where that memory comes from. Hans Christian Andersen was big when I was growing up.
Oh yeah. The Danny Kaye movie was very good, if you recall. Right. Yeah. He sang
looked and he said, "I am a swan." You know, I used to tell when my little boy was growing up, I used to tell him that story about, what you are now. You could change. People change. You grow up and you change, and you're not just a little kid, and you look and you're a big kid and all that.
We never got to be big kids. In my neighborhood, there was a height restriction. We only had one kid who broke through the barrier, and we've mentioned him on the show a couple of times. But yeah, you couldn't be too tall
So
right,
funny.
Right.
And ironically, speaking of not being too tall, the best basketball player ever to come out of Clinton was Willie Worsley. And
Dolph
Shays. No, he wasn't.
Oh, that's right. Well,
and there were several. Willie Worsley, but then there was what was his name? The little guy. He actually made the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Tiny Archibald.
Nate Archibald, exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize he was from Clinton.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
And
then there was a guy who went to school either when we were there to Clinton or just before or after, and he went to, like the University of Chicago or...
Oh, sure. Jerry Harkness.
Aiken or something.
Jerry Harkness.
Yes,
Harkness.
he played on that
Yeah,
team.
UTEP.
That,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They used to come into the Garden for the holiday festival.
But that was the first. Now I think it's Texas Western, but it used to be University of Texas El Paso, and I think they were the first all-black team to either be in the NCAA or to win it. I think they actually won it when Harkness was there. And yeah, and I've heard him on the. He was doing sports commentary the last I heard of him. So you know he's still around, and he's venerated in the Chicago area where he went to Loyola Chicago.
Yeah, Loyola of Chicago, and there were 2 or 3 guys on that
Loyola
team.
of Chicago. That's it.
Yeah, and 2 or 3 guys. What?
2 or 3 guys that were really good on that team.
Oh yeah, well you're sure if they went. I think they won the NCAA. I don't, you know, I'm not 100% certain.
They did.
It would have been about
Either that or the
reading it says Harkness attended the Loyola of Chicago.
Right.
Loyola of Chicago, where he was captain of the 62-63.
That's right, 62-63.
That won the NCAA
there you
title.
go. Yeah, you got it.
Well, you guys have better memories than I do, for sure.
Yeah,
Well, why would you know? You wouldn't know that. I mean, we wouldn't expect you to know that. We expect you to know a lot of things, but that's not one of them. I mean, you didn't go to that school.
Well, I'm just happy that I remembered the codes to get into the show, and I got on time. I wasn't didn't keep you guys waiting.
You know, that's funny because I look it up every time just to make sure I get the right numbers.
I have a quick baseball question. I know this, you guys, and you'll probably know this, but I ran into a guy the other day, a week ago today. He said he was on the Yankees during the 50s, and I'm trying to think that he said his last name was Brandt. And he was wearing a World Series ring, and I looked him up, and he's not in the book, so I don't know what the hell he was talking about.
Which book did you use?
The baseball encyclopedia.
Oh, yeah, that would online, the one online.
No, the book form.
Oh. Because you can. What the simplest way is to go into what is it? Baseball. I think it's called the Baseball Encyclopedia, and they have every guy who ever came up to bat who had an at bat, a legitimate at bat.
That's why I looked it up, and he wasn't in there. So, but he asked me a question that I never thought about. This is really trivia, but you guys will probably know. What do the Red Sox and the White Sox have in common?
Is this a riddle?
Well, no. Oh, you don't know, huh?
No. Well,
Other than they're both named Sox.
Yeah, but they wear socks.
Yeah, but that's not it.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm game. What is it?
Okay, they're the only 2 teams whose names do not end in an S.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, of course. I should have known that one.
Yeah,
although,
but I don't know why that fascinated me. I said, wow, that's right.
Well, there's a little asterisk to that story, because in the during the Red Scare of the 50s and in the early mid 50s, you know, during the McCarthy hearings and all that
right.
stuff, Cincinnati changed its name to the Redlegs, and so it ended in S, because the Reds would be the communists, you know, so they didn't want to be, so they actually changed the name to the Cincinnati Redlegs, and then they changed it back after the Red Scare ended. Yeah, so then they went back. So for a few years they did end.
Yeah, but it still ended with an S. Red legs or red.
Yeah, it ended with an S during that period.
Yeah. But that's I don't know. I love ants. I've stopped during this past week. I've stopped 4 strangers and asked them that question. I'm so in love with that question. I just stop people on the street.
Well, that's good. That's a holiday spirit.
And in L.A., there aren't many people on the street. You got to stop people in your car. You got to cut in front of them.
Well, I've actually joined a gym.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm doing any good because my daughter said, after a workout, do I sweat? I said, no, I don't sweat. She said, well, then you're not doing it right.
She's right.
Yes.
She's right. So I just go in and do stuff and probably, she's right. Well, I'll try to sweat next time. But then I get out of breath and then I shouldn't, whatever.
What do? You ride the bike?
I the treadmill.
Treadmill. Right. Yeah.
And but I don't go too fast. People next to me on all sides are just running on the treadmill, and I'm walking. I'm eating a sandwich.
Well, elevate it a little so that you get a little, like you're going uphill. Then you get a little more exercise.
Exactly.
More
That's
exercise
what I
that way.
Well,
yeah.
Let me give you guys my theory of exercise. If you don't do any exercise whatsoever for a long period of time, just getting out of bed in the morning becomes aerobic exercise. So and that's what you need is aerobic exercise. So you get to the point where I don't know if that makes sense, but
well, you do. It does. So just going there is good for me. It also makes me feel there's a lot of older guys there. There are a lot of older guys, and then there are the girls in the tight. This is going to be sexist now, and the police are going to show up at my apartment for saying this. And very sexy girls.
Sure.
Sexy girls.
And tight yoga things, and it just, I think it makes my blood go faster than the treadmill does, because it's just.
You remind yourself that you're still alive. And
there you go.
Much more important than a little exercise.
There you go. You just said it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You just said
and it's a setting you get to talk to people and you get to interact a little bit. It's if you're not in a big city anymore, like you don't have a neighborhood to hang in, so everything is with the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, there was a very interesting article in the New York Times. It was actually published a good while ago, but it was about people who left the Bronx and didn't return. And occasionally, this one guy who was born and raised there, and then he moved to L.A. Do you know him? Mike, you may know him. He lives in Los Angeles. I can give you
that guy.
That guy, yeah. He joined his brother's real estate.
New York, living in L.A., that shouldn't be hard to.
Well, he joined his brother's real estate business, yeah. And he apparently, this could be. Well, did you go to a picnic around 1992 or 91? This guy talks about. He organized a picnic of former Bronxites in Los Angeles, and 900 people showed up.
Oh, God.
You missed that one? Yeah.
I missed that one.
I bet. Did you get an invitation at least?
I don't remember.
Well, that you say that was back in 91 and 92. Now, with the way the internet is, and with these reunion sites and what have you, it's easy to get in touch with people. Back then, and in our previous generations, you'd lose track of people that you grew up with, and there was no chance of getting together. That's one of the great things about the computer. There are a lot of negativity and a lot of down things to having the computer in our social.
Yeah, but a lot of areas. I think we talked. Well, you and I, we talked about that the last show, was how people who lived in close proximity to one another, like in apartment buildings, in many cases did keep in touch with each other to a certain, within a certain group of friends for the rest of their lives. Whereas if you grew up on a farm, I mean, there's nothing wrong with growing up on a farm. I don't want the future farmers of America to come down on
America,
yeah.
I'll
But
get that guy for
if you've got 400 acres between you and your neighbor, you're not going to spend a great deal of time over at his house, playing a video game. Not that we ever played video games. That was not in our.
And unlike the future farmers, we spend very little time with sheep.
Absolutely.
So very cute.
Yes. Although I heard there was a fellow whose daughter went to school with us who was a shepherd. And
really?
Yes, he was like the last shepherd in New York City. So he was in great demand for people who own sheep. They wouldn't walk their sheep because they didn't have time. So he was a shepherd.
Had these long poles. I wonder what the long poles were for.
But that was to poke the sheep. It was called a shepherd's crock. Shepherd's crock. Not like a crock.
Oh, there's a name for it.
Yeah.
I love the idea of the last shepherd.
He was the last. Yes. And he would. But because he never got a flock together, he just walked one sheep at a time. So he was kept busy.
That's even funnier.
Poor
man needed a flock. How do you like that?
He was
one flock.
One flock. Yeah.
Just give me a flock.
And if that sheep died, he was screwed.
Well, but he was also very good at shearing sheep. So when the time came when they got too woolly, he would go. He made house calls. Not every shepherd made house calls.
No, not at all.
Yeah, right. Especially in our part of the Bronx, it was because he'd have to go up the stairs. In some walk-up buildings, people who kept sheep, they had trouble. He had trouble getting up the stairs and holding the sheep to shear it. So it was.
I could understand.
I wonder if he had a special license plate like the doctors did who made house calls, and they could double park when they're making a house call.
Well, they just had they had MD on their car. That was what gave them this.
Right.
That's
right.
SHEP. SHEP could have been his license plate, but I think Gene Shepard had that one.
Oh, Gene Shepard was terrific. That's one of the things I miss most about those days of New York radio. Shepard and John Nebel. But Shepard would tell stories about Midwest. And, you grow up in New York, you're a kid, you have no idea that there is the flyover states, what that means. Guys, teams would come into the Garden from Indiana with Walt Bellamy and what have you. We didn't know about Indiana, what it was about to live there. And Shepard would tell these stories that were terrific.
Yeah, he also told great stories about the you remember the Benji brothers? They had the lock on parking lots in Manhattan. He made up all these incredible stories. That's where they got the scene in Network when what's his name gets everybody to lean out the window and yell, "I've had it!" That famous scene.
Had enough. I can't take it anymore.
I can't take it anymore. That was taken from Shepard. He did that. What he did was he would tell people, he said, all right, I'm going to be quiet now for a few minutes. Put the radio on your windowsill and open the window, turn off your lights. And then there'd be this pause, so you're supposed to. And then he would do the yelling. I can't take this neighborhood anymore. You're all crazy. And he screamed.
No kidding. Oh, wow.
Yeah, he did it,
I don't remember that.
I did it a couple of times.
And
I
that
loved
was
it.
shows before network?
What?
That was before network.
Yes, it was. Oh, very much so.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I forget. I don't know what year network was made.
He wrote The Christmas Story. And,
right. Exactly. Which we can watch again on Wednesday.
And Flick and those guys.
Yeah, he grew up in Hammond, Indiana. Shepherd.
And talked about the Depression and people with donut machines and he was just terrific.
He did the narration on the A Christmas Story too. He narrated that,
Oh yes, that's right.
And they did one. I think he did one for the 4th of July, which is never. I mean, it was good, but it never had the sort of cult following that a Christmas Story has. That's played. One network plays it all for the whole 24 hours, one right after another.
And we're baseball freaks, so it comes to mind that Shepard was a White Sox fan. His father, in those days, and he talked about a lot of his shows were based on sports and on baseball and going to games and what have you.
He had wonderful stories about growing up. What's that?
Yeah, his.
Is it on YouTube?
A lot of stuff. You can get his nightly shows. A lot of them are recreated on YouTube. So look for him. That's a little taste of New York radio back when we had so many interesting Barry Gray, interesting talk shows. I learned more from late night radio, staying up literally all night till 3 a.m, and sleeping through class the next day. But my education came from listening to these guys. Long John Nebel would have panels of people. Basically, I based this network out of Long John Nebel. Getting people to talk about different subjects in panels, and the Tuesday night show is much like a Long John Nebel show, if you think about it, where 4 baseball mavens, you included, David, get together and
I had a friend who has since passed away who actually used to sub for Long John Nebel when he went on.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was such a raconteur of stories. He was fantastic and a wonderful, wonderful person. He actually, his career was, he made, and this is true, he was Margaret Truman's ghostwriter on the Margaret Truman Murder Mystery series. He did all of them. Yeah, he did all of those books, and he also, I forget how it came about, but he was like the executor of Veronica Lake's estate when she passed away, and he couldn't stand her, and he said nobody could stand her. She was such a horrible person that even her mother didn't show up at the funeral.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she was cremated, and it was his job to dispose of the ashes, which he did. So that was another great story.
That's terrible.
Even in a lake, threw the ashes in a lake.
No, I forget where he said he did, but he had these wonderful stories. When he was a PR guy, someone called and they wanted to know if he could get hold of a bunch of what we used to call midgets. Now we call them little people. But and he had this he was able to. They needed. You remember all Call for Philip Morris, the little guy with the little.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
So this guy wanted a bunch of midgets. Excuse me, a bunch of little people to dress up in a costume like that for a party, and he was able. And he found a hotel in Manhattan that catered to little people. Because like the in the elevator, the buttons were lowered much lower.
Oh,
so you can,
wow.
And so he had these wonderful stories. So he used to sub for Long John Nebel, and he was a great guy. He was just a terrific guy. And in fact, he had a connection to baseball. His grandfather played Major League Baseball. I
really?
forget which team. Yeah, I forget which team. But he. And
That's
Well,
fascinating
he's not like
about
that phony brand guy.
Yeah,
didn't
I wish I knew. I mean,
Yankees.
he was this short, little, round guy, and he's telling me these. He said he rooms with Mantle, and I'm going.
Oh, come on.
I know.
In those days, by that time, these guys didn't room with people. I think I think they all had their own rooms. Yeah, who would room with Mickey Mantle? I mean, people loved him, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where he got the ring.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, he might have bought it in a pawn shop. You never know.
That's right. That's true. That's a good point.
And they have these rings now that are being made that are basically facsimiles.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
But
Yeah,
they're very They're very realistic, and they could fool you.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah. So.
I'm reminded I used to have a paper route in Jackson Heights, and I ran into this guy in a lobby of a building, and the story is much like yours, Michael. This guy talked to me for about a half an hour about how he played in the majors, and he got a spike mark, but he showed me a scar on his arm when Ty Cobb slid into him and what have you. I was a kid. I was so excited that I had apparently spoken to this former major leaguer, and I got all these stories. Much like yourself, I came home, looked it up in some encyclopedia, couldn't find the guy's name.
Right.
I looked in every team that Ty Cobb ever played for. He never played Ty Cobb. He never played against Ty Cobb. He was just an old man bullshitting a little kid and holding him up on his paper route. And he must have felt good about that, and gives people an identity or whatever. But certainly disappointed me that I was an hour home late from doing the paper route, and I had to face the wrath.
Oh, whoa.
You've never faced the wrath of Vivian. You don't. It was not a pretty picture on a lot of levels. But yeah. And maybe you're not remembering the guy's name. There was a Ron Brandt who was a catcher with the Pirates, I remember.
Well, I looked up the last name, Brandt, and there's no such name in there. And I asked the guy, I said, did you hit any home runs? Or how many did home and his answer was, gee, this salad is good. I mean, he went right past.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a clue right there.
Right. But he got a chance to bullshit a little bit. And
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Nice.
So what are you guys doing for the holidays? I'll ask you first, Michael.
Well, let's see. Tomorrow I'm going to go to my... Tonight, nothing, because my daughter, they're invited to somebody's Hanukkah party, and I guess I'm not included. But tomorrow I'm going to go to my daughter's house, and we'll light a candle, or two.
Two, tomorrow, yeah.
Two by tomorrow.
Yeah.
Good. And David.
And then I'm going to go to this chili party, so there's no... we had, last week, it was fun. It was my grandson's 7th birthday, and it was like 15 little kids, young kids, the miniature golf course, and the arcade. So that was a festive day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
and you would think the miniature golf course would have midgets, but not so. It's a little.
The high class ones, they have them. They use them as caddies.
Right.
You know, the
I
exclusive.
Love the idea that they all lived in the one hotel. Oh
yes,
my God.
yes, and he has a story. In fact, that's the title of his book. Every midget has a Santa Claus costume or something like that.
Oh my God.
Well, I took a seminar once, and I can't even remember what the seminar was, but the folks that put it on rented space in San Francisco. There's a home, and I don't know what they call it, for former circus performers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
So part of it, if I remember correctly, is scaled down stuff, so little people or whatever they want to could function. And but I remember that was the thing that's, I don't even remember what the seminar was about, but stuck out for me that there is in San Francisco a place where former circus performers get to live and what have you. So,
let me just correct myself here. The book is called Every Midget Has an Uncle Sam Costume by Donald Bain, B-A-I-N. And it's a wonderful story about his adventures in public relations and actually finding this hotel in Manhattan. And he was able to do it. The other interesting thing was when he was writing all of the Margaret Truman books, he would have to. All she ever did was approve the idea, and so he would go up to their apartment. And if you remember, she was married to Clifton Daniel of the New York Times.
Yes.
And he said he figured they hardly talked to one another. He said because there were all these little notes it would say from MT to CD, and there were little notes, like open the refrigerator or something very domestic kind of little things. So anyway,
this was Margaret Truman, Harry's daughter.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Pianist. I remember Harry was very upset.
Yeah.
She got a bad review from playing the piano.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He went. Yeah.
Yeah, he was very upset at that. Yeah, but yes, some PR guy got the idea that Margaret Truman could write mystery novels, and the first one was Murder at the White House, and Don wrote it, and it was a big success. It was a really big success, and so from there on, they must have done about 10 or 15 of these murder at various places, and Don used real people. Like I told you once, I think that they used me as one character in Murder at the CIA. Yeah.
Wow.
And didn't tell you that story?
No. I surely don't remember.
Well, yeah, I'm in there. I'm right at the start of one chapter, or David Hubler. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so I'm on Amtrak, going either to New York or coming back, and I'm walking into the car to get my seat, and I see there's a couple sitting there, and she's reading Murder at the CIA. And I said, "Are you enjoying it?" And I never talk to strangers. I never do this. But I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Are you enjoying the book?" She said, "Oh, yes, I really like it." I said, "Well, let me introduce myself. I'm David Hubler. I'm one of the characters in the book." I swear to you, it's true. And the husband says, "You are? And she says, "Yes, I know you are. I was just reading about you in the book." So I didn't tell her that
great moment.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So I didn't want to spoil the fact that I was that I was going to spoil it until I get stabbed to death 2 chapters later. I didn't mention that, so I didn't want to spoil the book but I went away laughing to myself. I mean, who introduces himself as a character in a novel? And
that's a great moment for you and for them. Can you imagine?
Yes, absolutely. That made my day.
Oh, that's fabulous.
And like Michael said, made their day too.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And you say he wrote all of the books?
Yeah.
She didn't write anything?
Not a word. And
man.
Did he get any credit for it?
Later, later on, after Margaret passed away, they changed the focus he began writing the Jessica Fletcher series, Murder, She Wrote.
Oh, yeah.
And he started to write those. In fact, he got so busy that his wife pitched in and wrote a couple of them. And then they actually put his name on with Donald Bain. What's her name? The actress. I love her. She's a great actress. Angela Lansbury. Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
She wouldn't allow Don's picture to be in there, but she did agree that with Donald Bain would be okay. So they did a bunch. They did a number of those novels. Murder, She Wrote, whatever it might be. And he had.
And this was the publicist who took over for Long John Nebel when he.
When he was out on vacation or couldn't make it. Yeah, and Donald Bain sat in. He had a wonderful melodic voice, and it was just great. He also wrote Coffee, Tea, or Me. Do you remember that book about the?
Sure.
About the stewardesses and the expose.
Yes, I remember that, and I remember the cover. Well.
He wrote that.
A wine glass or something.
Right, yeah. He wrote that one, too. And it turned out it was totally fictitious. The whole thing was a con. People really fell for that. These were, great. What a wild life these stewardesses, as they were called then, had. And, Don had to coach them into what to say when they did publicity. It was he was quite a character.
What a prolific guy.
Yes, he was. He really was. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Donald Bain, B-A-N-E?
No, B-A-I-N. As in Bainbridge Avenue, sort of half of it.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
See, that's our Bronx hook, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. That's it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It always comes back to the Bronx, and everything is off Fordham Road.
That's true.
Am I right? It's 3 blocks from Fordham, and you go this way and that way. All right, guys. When we meet, it'll be at Harris Field. But until then, it'll have to remain over the internet, and I love doing this.
Okay.
So great holiday, guys.
I don't want to miss it. Ralph, when should we do it? When should we do this
2 weeks from today.
When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain?
Now, that will depend on when David can come out to the West Coast and plan a trip out here.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
I'd love it if you guys would come up to Northern California.
All right. When as far as end.
You'll be fine.
All right.
Both love Alameda. We'll plan on that. We'll plan on a convention, the Bronx Roots folks in Alameda, California. And it's a hop, skip, and a jump for you to come up. They don't have PSA airline anymore like they used to.
Okay. Hello?
Okay.
Hello.
All right.
We're here. All right, guys. Thank you for listening,
all.
everybody out there. It's David Hubler, Michael Preminger, and me, the weak link of it all, Ralph Tyko. The show is Bronx Roots. The network is the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I enjoy it. I want you guys to stay healthy and come back in 2 weeks, and we'll do it again.
Okay.
All
Bye-bye.
Right. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holiday.
And Happy New Year, too, because we'll be back
Happy New
in the
Year.
new year. Okay.
That's right.
Bye.
It'll be a new year with a new start.
Right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
I don't know what starts or what. Be well.
Okay, bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.